Welcome. I'm Zygmunt from RiverCruiseCenter and thank you for joining. In this part one, we will show you what you will see on a river cruise down the Danube, starting with the Prague extension and then going all the way down to Budapest. You'll see such fantastic town sites as Melk, Regensburg, Vienna, Passau, Bratislava, and more. Enjoy. And I appreciate your time, and I won't talk anymore. Now I have Richard Bravo from Ama Waterways, who was very kind to do the presentation. Go ahead, Richard.
Thank you so much, Zygmunt, for that introduction. I appreciate it. And thank you once again, everybody, for taking a moment to join us at Ama Waterways. We actually like to start every presentation with a thank you rather than simply end it with a thank you. We know that there's a lot of things you could be doing, so your time is valuable, and I just want to appreciate that. And Zygmunt, also thank you for scheduling these events and giving me an opportunity to share not just what the Ama Waterways experience is itself, but really just all the amazing places that we travel. Hopefully this will be a nice highlight and overview of one of our experiences. I should say a couple of our experiences, because we've got a couple of itineraries that we operate on the Danube River, which we'll be featuring exclusively today, including the Upper Danube and the Lower Danube, which can be quite different for a number of reasons, really. The Upper Danube is a little bit more in Western Europe, so a lot more things that you would experience there, even just from being that American like myself that doesn't speak any European languages, to go over there and be able to communicate with a lot of people quite easily, versus going down into the lower Danube, where it may not be quite the same experience, but wonderful people along the way. And I'm just going to start moving right through here. This next slide that we see right here is something that I want to share, because I don't know how many of you may have had the opportunity to experience a river cruise, and it's just an amazing experience. I can tell you that I've been in the travel industry for a number of 25 years now, and work in a number of different capacities with different companies, but I can tell you sincerely that river cruising is my favorite. And even just to compare it to ocean cruising, which I also love ocean cruising, but I still love river cruising a bit more because it's a much more intimate experience. It's up close and personal. And one thing that's different from ocean cruising, aside from kind of the obvious, right? There's smaller ships, there's not nearly as many people. The average guest capacity that we would have on our ships is somewhere about 150 to 160 on average, as compared to ocean cruises, as we know, can have thousands of people. But the ocean cruises, very often they're designed to be a part of the destination, which is quite different from river cruising. The river cruise vessels are your luxury floating hotel. We're sailing to and through the destination, literally at some ports of call, and Zygmunt can attest to this, where you step off that vessel right onto those old cobblestone streets. The vessel itself is beautiful, just from the decor, but even more importantly, the warm crew that we have on board that pays attention to every detail and everything that you want from your experience. From something that maybe you mentioned just kind of offhandedly at dinner one evening that they remember, and that they bring that thing out that you may have been asking for. They really are the ones that set us apart. The other thing that I would mention too is that there's some other great river cruise partners out there in the industry, but what I love to share with people, because there's a lot of pride with this statement, is that Ama Waterways has won more awards than any other river cruise line out there. And I think that's just a testament to the fact that we always go above and beyond what the bar is, really what that expectation would be from guests from experiencing a luxury river cruise. So Prague is actually where you have the option to do one of the pre-nights. It's an amazing town, kind of known as the city of 100 spires, from spires and towers and turrets and a lot of steeples. You can just see them kind of dotting the skyline here, and a rich history also. Zygmunt and I were just kind of talking about a number of the countries that were once under communism, and the Czech Republic, or Czechoslovakia at the time, was under communist rule also. And then it wasn't until 1989, under the Velvet Revolution, that they actually were free of communism. And it's actually given the name Velvet Revolution. I actually just found this out not too long ago, because it wasn't a very violent revolution, which is a nice thing, but a lot to see there. It's located on the Voltana River, which is a tributary of the Elbe River, and just an interesting town. So our cruise manager, of course, would join you. They're leading on some of the different excursions, but at every port of call, including the pre and post that we're offering as well, we offer between 4, even up to 5 different shore excursions that are just included for all of our guests. You don't have to pay anything additional for those tours. I will disclaim that comment though, and there's actually a small handful on certain itineraries where there may be an extra cost to a tour, but the majority of them on all of our different tours are going to be complimentary. But again, a great town. I would definitely recommend booking the pre-trip here. A lot of beautiful things to see, from the Charles Bridge to the Old Town. We've got cycling tours that you can enjoy also. So definitely plan on doing that. On the last day in Prague, we'll actually board a tour bus, an AMA Waterways tour bus. We'll take our guests all the way down. We'll have a brief stop in the really quaint town of Regensburg, this beautiful 13th century cathedral that you get a chance to see, get some time to walk around there also. They have a beautiful twin-spired Gothic landmark that is actually home to the Regensburger, forgive me if I say this word wrong, Domspatzen choir. So a lot of really nice things to see there. Just a brief stop though, a nice leisurely stop, and then we'll make our way all the way to Vilshofen. So moving on to this next slide.
Let me just mention Regensburg a little bit.
Please.
That is a really fantastic old town that was established 2,000 years ago by Marcus Aurelius. And you still see Roman walls there. There's a cathedral, which is the best Gothic architecture in entire Europe. And the stone bridge that goes over the Danube was built in 1135. It's a very, very historic town that I strongly recommend you visit after Prague.
That's right. That's a really good note too. And just to even share with guests, that was the only bridge that they actually had for a number of years, and be able to cross over onto the other side. So you had the you may know this, Zygmunt, I believe it was the old fortress on one side, and then they had the old town on the other side. So this was really the only place that they could get across for a number of years.
Yes, that's true. And also there was a stop where they collected money for anybody who wanted to float down the river, because the river, all the rivers in Europe in the Middle Ages were like the freeways of today. There were toll roads.
That's right. That's right. And that's what makes these rivers so special. You know, this river alone, the Danube River, has a total of 4 different capitals located along its banks, in addition to a number of other really great, amazing little towns and villages. And our goal with AMA Waterways is we want to always take in those highlights, which is why we're going to stop at Vienna and Budapest and some of those other amazing towns. But we also look for those little gems out there as well. And even if it's just a brief stop to take in a really amazing highlight and then allow you some leisurely time before we maybe push on in that same day, those are the type of experiences that we look to curate. So once we leave Regensburg and actually make our way into Vilshofen, where we will actually board, we have a special event set up, which is Oktoberfest. And we know that Munich is the original place for Oktoberfest, but we really create this nice experience. We set up these wonderful tents. We bring in some local musicians. We're serving pretzels and some of the great local beers. It's a really fun experience. This is where you get to meet everybody actually gets to meet the cruise manager at this day if it's the first day you're arriving and you're only going to do the cruise. And they actually will dress up like we see Chavo here, one of our cruise managers, who is wearing his lederhosen or leather breeches translated. And, it's just a great way to meet some of the other guests and have this fun little party before you actually board the ship. And then once everybody's on board that evening, we'll depart Vilshofen and make our way down to the next port of call, which is actually going to be the town of Passau, which is a really cute little town. One of the things that it's known for is the fact that it's right on the riverbanks where 3 different rivers actually converge. We have the Ilz River, the Inn River, then of course the Danube River. And what I'm going to show, and this first one just being the example, as I go through all the different slides, I'm going to also have a little square that we see off to the side that includes all the different shore excursions that we're offering to. Again, we have a number of things to choose from at every stop. What's nice with our shore excursions also, and then of course, if you consider social distancing, is that we've got something called audio box, and these are basically like headphones that are cleaned off daily, and they charge in your room, so nobody else really gets to handle them. Then we'll give you something to clean after you've been using them that day. But it allows you to listen to our tour guides as they're going through and leading different city tours. Maybe you're doing a bicycle tour, but you don't have to be right next to them to ensure that you're hearing everything. You can be 40, 50 feet away, taking some photos, but still listening to everything that they're saying also. One of the ones that I would recommend here, if you've been reading the ones off to the side here, would be the guided hike to the Westauerhaus Fortress. So this is a really nice hike up here. You're going to get a great vantage point, some really wonderful views, kind of looking down onto the rivers. But here is where you also get to see that each of these rivers has a strikingly different color. So you can see them kind of go from the darker down to the lighter until they kind of merge and all kind of blend into one. So just really cool experience. But up at the top here, we'll have some different things set up as well. So go and have a beer or two and grab some snacks before making your way back down. So great little town. And then when we leave, so our next stop will actually be, it's actually going to be the town of Linz. And from Linz, you can spend some time in Linz. Most of the excursions will actually go outside of Linz, either into Salzburg or into a town called Český Krumlov. And if I were to make a recommendation, I would say if you did the pre-tour in Prague, maybe you could skip Český Krumlov. It's sort of a smaller version, if you will, of Prague, just because it was also under communist rule, and you can definitely see it in half a day. All the highlights there. So if you didn't go Prague, definitely consider doing Český Krumlov. But if you've done Prague, I would say definitely do Salzburg. It's a wonderful town there. Of course, it's located up in the northern foothills of the Alps and the Bavarian German border. And interesting too, if you didn't know this or aren't too keen on geography, it's actually landlocked and borders 7 different countries, including Hungary, Slovenia, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, the Czech Republic, as well as Slovakia, if I'm recalling all those correctly. So it's just, it's a great town to, one, just kind of check off your list. But again, we've got some amazing things that you can include there. It's a city of Mozart, or, Sound of Music, just an inspiring town to walk around. And one of the best things I would say is to walk around the town with the narrow city streets, just taking in some of the views of Salzburg Forest, which dominates the skyline and considered to be one of Europe's best fortresses. In the afternoon, we take guests to the summer residence of the Habsburg Schönberg Palace with some free time to enjoy the garden and take in the beautiful fountain there. And then the evening, we'll take our guests to a musical concert with some music that's been composed, of course, by Strauss and Mozart. So again, these are some of the things that we look to include for our guests and try to make them as unique as we can. The next day, we'll actually arrive in the town of, Linz is actually what I said already. So I'm sorry if I have some of these duplicated here, but Český Krumlov is actually the opportunity that you could stop also. And you can just see from this picture, it's a beautiful little town, certainly worth a visit. But again, if you visited Prague, you'll probably find a lot of the same things to be pretty similar, which is why I suggested Salzburg. But just want to make sure I share this beautiful picture with you along the way. Then, as we make our way out of Salzburg, we're actually going to go through this really wonderful 18-mile stretch of the known as the Wachau Valley. It's located between Melk and Krems in Austria, and it's a gorgeous day of cruising the Wachau Valley. And the Wachau Valley, if you haven't heard of it, there's some beautiful little towns like Melk, like Krems, Dürnstein, which is one of the towns that we see right here in this picture. This beautiful church right here. Up at the top is actually the ruins of Dürnstein Castle, and this is actually the castle that King Richard the Lionheart was actually held captive by King Leopold the Virtuous, if I'm recalling that correctly. This is actually after the Third Crusade, where there was some sort of conflict between the two, and he was actually held prisoner, until there was some ransom.
That's true. That's true. And the ransom he paid was just an outrageous amount. And this happened in the 12th century. And he was imprisoned there for a whole year. And it's a beautiful sight sailing right by it.
Right. And we do get to stop here also. And taking a hike up to the top of that, the ruins of that castle. I haven't had a chance to do that. But folks that I know that have had a chance to do this, as well as some other ones, say that it's just the views are stunning, but the ruins itself are actually quite beautiful. So I would definitely suggest doing that if you have a chance to stop there. But Dürnstein itself, I mean, it's, if you're looking for some wonderful wines along the way, one thing that's unique with Alma Waterways is that every place that we're stopping, we're giving our guests an opportunity to experience some local wines and premium wines, I would add. We're not just serving on board the ship that complimentary house wine and then having you pay for that more desirable wine. We're going to serve you nice wines right out the gate, and they're going to be regional for every stop along the way. All the drinks are included at every lunch, at every cocktail hour, where it's a full open bar, at every dinner. We have a welcome reception, a farewell reception. If you want, champagne mimosas at breakfast, we can have that available for you as well too. But I would add, it's technically not all inclusive because after lunch up until cocktail hour, and then of course after dinner, it's not included. But I can attest to this, that our servers are very, very generous. I always enjoy going after dinner. They've probably topped it off, after every 2 drinks that I'm taking, but I always enjoy a drink after, so I just have them top it off one more time and go up to the lounge and enjoy some conversation with other guests. But I just want to give you an idea of what that was like. And then Vienna, there's so many things to enjoy in Vienna, capital of music, capital of Austria, the royal city. There's just so many things to say about this. Some of the great composers moved here, such as Mozart, who moved from Salzburg actually to really become noticed and become famous. One of the tours that we offer is the Royal Tour. It's this great bus tour to see some of the highlights, of course, like the Opera House that we're seeing right here, the walking tour that we have as well. There's also St. Stephen's Cathedral. So again, a lot to take in right here. There's also the hidden gems, just some great cafes and restaurants. And of course, you can't stop in Vienna without trying some of the different Viennese coffees. But the city tour, or there's a bicycle tour. We have bicycle tours in pretty much every port that we stop at in all itineraries, with the sole exception of Amsterdam and Budapest. Those are the only 2 towns that we don't offer cycling tours.
While we're in Vienna, it's really interesting, and you also mentioned Mozart, but Mozart, Beethoven, Strauss all composed the music in Vienna. A couple interesting things are the Spanish riding school horses. The ship stops right almost in the middle of Vienna. It's not very far, and you can just walk through all kinds of places. The Vienna Boys Choir, AMA occasionally arranges for a tour or a performance by the Vienna Boys Choir, and there's some great palaces. The Schönbrunn Palace is fantastic, the Belvedere Palace, the Hofburg Palace, and especially during, let's say, Christmas market season in November and December, around those palaces, all the local merchants come out and they do all kinds of different, you can buy all kinds of different things. There are hundreds of merchants that show off all their wares.
Thank you for touching on the Christmas markets, because we offer a few different themed sort of experiences, one being the Christmas markets, another one being our celebration of wine cruises. I talked a little bit about that also. But what's special about the Christmas market cruises is that, these markets they've been doing for so long, and it's not like they're doing them for tourists. Certainly there's a lot of tourists that show up, but it's really like we get to kind of step into what the locals are going out to experience during the holiday season. That makes it special. The hot wines that they're serving, and that so many of the different stalls being operated by some different families. They take a lot of pride in the recipes that they put together, and there's wonderful souvenir cups that they serve also. And it's typically made with either a red or a white wine. They'll add a certain spice, which might be a clove or even cinnamon, and then they'll add a citrus to it. And just a great way to kind of, have this nice hot drink that warms you up. There's not a lot of alcohol in it, and just kind of walk around and enjoy some of the different arts and crafts and things too. So thank you so much for touching upon that, Zygmunt.
Richard, I have a quick question. Before Vienna, are we still stopping at Melk?
We are making a stop in Melk also. That's right. So we get to take in the Melk Abbey as well. Beautiful abbey, kind of located up on that kind of rocky outcrop overlooking the Danube below. Beautiful Baroque architecture. So yes, we do make that stop in Melk as well.
Yeah, Melk Abbey is a fantastic abbey. It was founded in 1089. It has some great frescoes. It has 2,000 manuscripts in a gold gilded library, which is just amazing when you walk in. Napoleon, Maria Theresa, and a number of popes stayed there. And if you go there, and I recommend that you go to Melk Abbey when you're on the cruise, you will see inside the Melk Abbey a skeleton. And I will not tell you who the skeleton belongs to, but if you go on RiverCruiseCenter.com, there is a link about, if you scroll down a little bit down lower, you see a link to say Melk Abbey, and I have a whole bunch of pictures from Melk Abbey that I took. Okay, Richard, all yours.
That's great. That's great. No, this is the stuff that makes it interesting. So thanks for chiming in with that. And then we make our way down to Bratislava. So this is one of those 4 capitals that I mentioned along the Danube, and it's it's a great little town, and what makes this one nice, it's a lot smaller, of course, than say Vienna or Budapest that you're going to experience on the same itinerary, but certainly well worth making the stop. And if you look at um, this castle right here, it kind of looks like an upside down table. In fact, that's very often what it's referred to with the four legs and the four kind of towers at either end there. But it's just a great little town to kind of walk around and get lost in, because you'll always be able to find your way back. And this, of course, is one of the stops here as well. And then we'll push on before we finally end our tour of the romantic Danube. But again, at every stop, we've got walking tours or some city tours. We'll do some different foodie tours, which is really nice. You get to really taste that local cuisine. We'll try and pick some places that the locals will go to on those different foodie tours, different hikes, so if you have an active lifestyle that you kind of want to maintain, maybe hit the gym every day or doing a cycling trip, this is going to be the experience that you want. On board the ship, we actually have a gym. We have a dedicated fitness instructor on board every single sailing. They're doing morning stretches, morning Pilates, morning yoga. In addition to these type of tours that we offer, and we offer what we call a gentle, a regular, and active. So the gentle would be, as an example, if I were taking my parents who are, in their mid to late 70s now, I do the gentle one. It's a bit slower pace, it still takes in some core highlights. The regular one is going to be a little bit faster paced, taking in just a bit more of the highlights. And then the active is going to be like that guided cycling tour, or maybe a guided hiking tour through the Black Forest if you're on the Rhine. So really great options to choose from.
That's true. One other little note about Bratislava. Bratislava has gone through a lot of changes. It was known as Pressburg by the Germans, Pozsony by the Hungarians, and it changed hands back and forth. And after communism, Slovakia became a capital. It became Slovakia's capital in 1993.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, very recent. Exactly. Those are, and so many things. One of the things that Zygmunt and I were talking about just before, on the Danube, I would really recommend, I'm going to move to this next slide right now to start looking at some of the lower Danube. But if you could look at doing, we actually have one departure, it's called the Grand Danube, that takes in both the upper and the lower Danube. So if you want the full experience of those Western European countries and the more Eastern European countries, you're just going to get a wide spectrum of different traditions and cultural experiences and food and religions and history, and there's just a lot to really take in. So that is an option to do that one. That is actually a 14-night itinerary, the Grand Danube, or you can just look to pair some of these as back-to-back too. So that's an option as well. But I wanted to feature the gems of Southeast Europe, because this is one that, again, goes a little bit further into some of those former Eastern Bloc countries. And it's just again, some of the things that I mentioned, it's a really special experience, so again, from that culture, the history, those different traditions, lots of wars that were in this area, as well as, 45 years under communism that we've been talking about. One of the things that you can do for pre-trip here is actually Budapest. So both myself and Zygmunt mentioned some of the different things here, but one of the nice things also is that we'll actually take you to the Budapest horse farm, where you get to actually experience what some of the Hungarian cowboys do. There's a horse show, some amazing Hungarian goulash, again, keeping with those local cuisines. And then when you sail out of Budapest, if you haven't seen pictures of this, actually it was the opening slide, if you can recall that, seeing Budapest lit up at night. It's called the illumination of lights. And what we do is we actually sail around what's known as Margaret Island, and you just get a wonderful perspective from the river view that you can't get from anywhere else, the entire city lit up at night. So I would definitely suggest doing the pre-trip if you get an option, if you get that opportunity.
Right. Budapest is really, for those, most of you probably know, but it's made up of two different towns, Buda on one side and Pest on the other side. And they kind of made peace and made one city, Budapest. What it's really known for is fantastic for 8 bridges. And the most famous one is the chain link bridge. Right here, what Richard is showing is what? Anybody know? Well, I can't hear you. Okay. So one of the things right on the other side of this Parliament building is called the Citadel. It's a Citadel fortress where if you go up there. It's a small hill, not very high, and it has very, very interesting views of the entire area. Plus, something interesting is a marzipan museum up there. I've never known anything about marzipan, but I went up to it, and when we went, it had dresses made out of marzipan, clothes, furniture. I never knew marzipan could make things like that. The kind of things you should see in Budapest is the Hungarian National Museum, which is fantastic. The Central Market Hall, which you can just about buy anything from fish to gifts. Then baths. If Budapest is very well known for its hot bath, they're all over the place. And the Gellerbaths right next to the hill are great. And Matthias Medieval Church. Those are just some of the things. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, no, it's unending. I mean, we could literally do like hours of a presentation of the Danube River. So we're really just trying to call it some of the highlights and pack in as much as we can. But I will share this. We didn't mention this at the beginning. This will be a recorded session. So if you're really interested and want to pick up on some of the things that you may not be, fully grasping right now, Zygmunt will be sending this out probably in just a few days after this session, so you can listen again and even share it with some other folks too. But that's some great information to include there, Zygmunt. Thank you.
And you can always call me and I'll give you an answer. If I don't know it, I'll find out the answer.
That's right. There you go. And I mentioned that the crew is a really big part of that. Here's a look at some of our crew on board one of our vessels. So this goes from the hotel manager to the folks in the restaurant, to the concierge team, to all those people that are behind the scenes that you don't even see, that are making sure that your excursion is going to go off without a hitch. But this next slide that's coming up right here, this shows some of our cruise managers. I have to say, as special as everybody is on board, our cruise managers really are the VIP guest when you're on board, a VIP host rather, when you're on board. I mean, they are extremely knowledgeable. They're there to make tips, recommendations, suggestions. And what's really nice that when you book a pre or post package with AMA Waterways, our cruise managers will actually join you before the trip and after the trip. You're going to have an AMA Waterways representative meet you at the airport. They're going to take you to the hotel. You'll meet our cruise manager there. They're going to lead you on some different excursions. But once again, they're going to be there just to make sure that you feel comfortable and answer any questions that you may have. And then when you get on board, you've already built that rapport with them. And then the same thing on the end. If you're staying a little bit longer, a few days longer, they're going to join you for that as well. And then after that, when they say goodbye to you, what we'll do is send them off to another river cruise to do maybe a different itinerary. It could be a different ship with a whole new crew making different stops. So I share this just really to emphasize that they're incredibly knowledgeable because they get moved around so much and get to experience so many different things, and really a special part of what AMA Waterways is about.
But I'll email everyone that is attending, and I'll have my cell phone number on there, and please contact me when you need information about river cruising.
Wonderful. Zygmunt, thank you once again so much for this. Thank you everybody for joining, and be safe and have a great evening, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.